Hello, it is me, Naswi. I know I haven't uploaded a video in like 2 years, but I needed to talk about what happened with the race today. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to sleep. So, those who are unaware of what happened, NASCAR Cup Series Championship was tonight, or well, it was today. Although I'm recording this at like really early in the morning. And Joey Logano won his third championship. Now, before I say anything, the fact that he's only one of 10 people ever to win three championships is insane. But of course, as it seems every year with the playoff format, everybody's always saying, oh, this is a Mickey Mouse ring. Oh, this, he didn't really deserve it. You know, all these things that people say. And I'm not going to say I disagree with that. What I am going to say, though, is that I think that there's a thing with the playoffs and even with stages that needs to change because I do agree that him winning this championship is questionable. Not because of anything he did, not because he didn't like, not because he cheated or anything, but because he exploited the system. And there's one simple truth. I've been a defender of the playoffs for a while. I've grown to be okay with stage racing. And I'm okay with those things staying. If NASCAR wants to keep the playoffs, wants to keep stage racing, fine. But to me, there's one caveat that has to change that to me is really the catalyst of all this. It's not the playoffs, it's not stage racing, it's not removing the bonus points for leading laps. It's winning your in. I think winning your in has completely destroyed any credibility for any of these championships won potentially. When you look at this year alone, I kept track of the points all year long, and I'm just gonna pull them up real quick. Here they are. So I'm just going to pull up the points from what they looked like after the race at Darlington. So when the regular season ended at Darlington, you consider the fact that in the 16 people make the playoffs, and four of those guys, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez, Austin Cindric, and Harrison Burton, were all below the top 16 in points. You're telling me that somebody like Harrison Burton deserved to be in the playoffs over Ross Chastain or Chris Buescher or Bubba Wallace, who was way higher in points. Even Kyle Busch, you could make an argument for. Really? I mean, look, the win for Harrison Burton at Daytona was awesome. It was a great story, but everybody knew he had no business being there. And even then, Daniel Suarez won the second race of the year at Atlanta. And after that, he really wasn't a threat really the rest of the regular season. Cindric obviously won the race at Gateway, but if it wasn't for that, he wasn't going to make the playoffs. And Chase Briscoe made the playoffs with the walk-off win at Darlington, which was a great win, great story again. But the problem is all these wins are overshadowed by, oh look, the playoffs. And I went through the playoffs and kept track of points through the playoffs to see what the points looked like after every race. And I noticed that after there was no change in terms of points for the round of 12. Like the bottom four who were eliminated all were at the bottom four in points. All the top 12 were ahead. No controversy there. Round of eight, excluding, of course, what happened with the whole Alex Bowman DQ, which as a Bowman fan makes me want to die inside, of course. You had a situation where the top eight advanced, but as I feared it would happen, the top four advanced. And the three guys who won in the round of eight, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, all of them didn't score the top most points. William Byron did. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. Those guys have the top 4 points, and only Byron got to compete for a championship. The others didn't. That's a shame. And I think the problem is the win and you're in system has basically made, with the exception of 5 races a year, irrelevant. It also has led to some questionable things. I just look at this year alone. When you look at the fact that would Austin Dillon have done what he did at Richmond by intentionally taking out Joey Logano and then turning right into Denny Hamlin? Would he have done that? I don't know if he would have. It would have could have prevented something like that. You also it also allows for you to actually be consistent in any round of the playoffs too. Because Tyler Reddick won the race at Homestead, but he finished dead last, or he finished, what was it, 30? Hang on, I have it up here. So he finished 35th in Vegas and finished 33rd, I believe it was, 34th at Martinsville. He deserves to race for a championship after being in the top 8 and winning one race and doing horrible in the others. He deserves to be there. Joey Logano wins the race at Vegas, but he finishes 10th at Martinsville and he finished 28th in Homestead. He wasn't even trying. He should race for a championship. Even Ryan Blaney, yeah, he finished first and second in Martinsville and Homestead, respectively, but he also finished 32nd in Las Vegas. Does he deserve to race for a championship? When William or Christopher Bell was consistent more than anyone else, he easily was way above everyone else. Kyle Larson, yeah, he wasn't great, but still had a better average finish than the others. Denny Hamlin wasn't bad either. And none of them get to race for a championship because they didn't win. Something doesn't seem right there. And what it also proves is playoff points, especially, or not playoff points, but stage points. All that stuff doesn't even matter if you don't win a race. That stuff just to me, the regular season, if you win one race in the regular season's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. And that's been the biggest problem with winning you're in. And you could say this has started even with the original playoff format in 2014. But winning you're in basically guarantees you to, as Joey Logano did, win one race and do nothing in the next two and be just fine. He was able to do whatever he wanted. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. I don't think Reddick, the fact that he finished in the bottom 5 in the other two races, but one at Homestead, deserves to be in the Final Four. He doesn't deserve to be in the Final Four. He didn't deserve to be here. You know, and it's a damn shame because we had a great top 8 with the 8 guys that were in. And you could have prevented all of this if it wasn't winning you're in, because it would actually put some weight on the regular season. You would have had, instead of Chase Briscoe, who, look, I like Chase. I love Daniel Suarez. Austin Cindric, I'm cool with. Harrison Burton, great story, of course, with the Daytona win. But you're telling me those guys should have competed for a championship over guys like Ross Chastain, who was competitive throughout the regular season, Chris Buescher, who got robbed of about 3 wins, Bubba Wallace, who was a consistent top 10 threat, top 10, top 15, and even Kyle Busch, who was 16th in points after the regular season finale. You're telling me that all the guys below them should have been in above just because they didn't win a race? That's where the problem for me lies. If you're going to reward these playoff points and these stage points to drivers, great. But wins can't be the end all be all to where basically you can just diddly poo for 25 races and do nothing. You do nothing for 25 races, win one, like Joey did. Joey Logano won the race at Nashville, did nothing else in the regular season. Look, what was he after Darlington? He finished Darlington. He was 15th in the regular season points. And you're telling me, and look, he did what he had to do. He had more points than everyone else in the first 2 rounds. He advances. But you're telling me he should have advanced when he didn't do anything in the 3rd round? I knew as soon as he won that race at Vegas, he was going to win the championship. Didn't matter what was there. This is just how it goes. I mean, if you follow Joey for however many years, he's the even year merchant, of course. And like, that's a problem. Like, the fact that all you have to do is win one race and all your problems are solved. Like really? Like, come on, guys. Like, seriously, like, when you had the original chase format, or at least getting to it, you had to be consistent through the regular season to get there. Tony Stewart, I think, was it 2006 or something? He won like 4 races in the regular season, but missed the playoffs because he wasn't consistent enough. Jeff Gordon had a season like that too. I think maybe 2005 or something, where he also missed the playoffs or the chase because he wasn't consistent enough. If you want to reward drivers for their consistency with stage points and all these other things, then reward them. But don't screw them over because they didn't win a race. I know race car drivers. What's the goal of a race car driver? To win. Of course, I understand that. But this whole legitimacy thing, the win and you're in completely ruins it, because in in the NBA and the NHL and the MLB, if you win one game, like you dominate one game, but get destroyed in all the other ones, you don't advance. The NFL, you can't compare it to the NFL because the NFL is sudden death. It's win or go home. And to me, the points to me, if you're going to count points as being super like important, well, they have to be important for the regular season too. And again, wins can't be the end all be all. And that goes in the playoffs too. And it wasn't a problem for the playoffs, at least the first two rounds. Can't say the same about the third round though. And the whole thing of the final round, oh, you are whoever finishes ahead of everyone else wins. Am I the only one who thinks that it should be points based on the final race too? Like if you were the guy with the most points was William Byron, who had the most points after the third round of the playoffs. You would think he would end up with the biggest advantage to where he would be in the best possible spot, where a guy like Joey Logano, who would have had the least points, would have to do something big. Or, that to me would make a lot more sense. Count points all the way through. It is what I think hurts the most. Win and you're in and beat everyone to the line. Because I think if those aren't a factor, I think the playoffs are actually they're pretty the playoffs I think aren't actually too bad. And stage racing, actually, I can even defend it. I don't think those things are that bad necessarily. The problem is when you factor in the win and you're in, which basically makes as soon as you win a race in the regular season or any round of the playoffs, every other race in the regular season or the playoffs becomes irrelevant. You don't have to try. You don't have to do anything. You could just sit there and do nothing. And that's not good. That's horrible for the sport. That's horrible. I mean, this is why so many people are so pissed about this championship for Joey Logano, because this is a dude who had an average finishing position of 17th throughout the year. He by no means had as many points as anybody. And especially in the third round, he got the least amount of points overall from all the drivers in the third round. Can't that's not good. That's not good. And I'm not sure what the actual full standings would have been, but okay, if these four get there and say they reset points to where Logano is, he would have been, how many points would he have been? But he actually would have been behind Reddick. Reddick would have had the most points, actually. When I said Byron had the most, I lied. Reddick would have had the most because of playoff points. Logano would have needed a really good day, needed other people to struggle, but in all likelihood, it would have been Byron who won the championship, maybe even Blaney. I don't know for sure the math. Somebody would have to correct me on that. But that's where all of this goes. It's just where all this legitimacy stuff and all these question marks, this is where to me, it spawns from winning you're in. Take away winning you're in, you prevent a Richmond debacle. You prevent people from just doing nothing, taking it easy for 2 weeks. You prevent and you prevent potentially the questions of legitimacy. Like, I know the playoffs have questioned legitimate champions for 20 years, but they'd be more legitimate if you avoided winning you're in, because winning you're in wasn't a thing in the original chase. You still had to be consistent enough. Despite how good Jimmy Johnson was in the second half of the playoffs in 2004, he didn't win the championship because Kurt Busch was consistent enough to prevent that. You consider, I mean, sometimes you get just a really strong run like Tony Stewart in 2011, who can beat out a consistent guy. Of course, that was Carl Edwards. You have to be good enough, though, obviously taking advantage of the points and whatever, the points reset. But it all comes down, for me, with the knockout style playoffs. You have to be consistent in the round. You can't just win one race, finish 35th in the other two races, and to me advance. That to me just doesn't make sense. And that's where the problem spawns. If win and your in's taken away, I genuinely think the playoffs actually could crown a more legit champion, could force teams to actually race and not just sit there and be cozy. I think it would change a lot. I really do. Now, if you disagree with me, I understand. I'm curious to see what you guys will say in the comments, because this is just my opinion. I'm just some random guy. I'm curious what you guys think. And, I hope something happens with this. I hope they have to change. If they change that, I think it would make something happen. But we all know they won't change anything. They won't because this generates clicks on YouTube and views and stuff. These crazy moments like this. So they probably won't change anything. I wish they do. I hope they do. I doubt it. But crazier things have happened, so I can't say for sure. Anyway, that's all I have. If you tell me what you think in the comments, and that's about it for me. I don't have anything else to say other than just a big fat sigh. That's about all I can say. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Put however you feel in the comments. Take care.